household's wealth is 10 times that of black families. If we try closing this racial wealth gap today, we as a country could generate up to $5 trillion more in just 5 years. With Action for Racial Equity, Citi is working to increase access to banking and credit in communities of color. Because striving for racial equity is about creating a brighter financial future for everyone. Learn more at citi.com/racial equity.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
It is a holiday Tuesday, holiday week it feels like, live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are on Fox Sports Radio, we are on iHeartRadio, and we are right here on FS1, 1 hour from now. The Herd hierarchy, top 10 teams in the NFL. Kansas City keeps falling. We'll talk about that. 1 hour. Urban Meyer rumors to the NFL. Joy Taylor's joining me. Joy, how are you today?
I'm great. That was something last night.
Wow, it was.
A little hard on the eyes.
In Foxborough against Belichick. Start my show today. We know certain things are really important in life. Like if you've ever had car trouble, if you've ever had unreliable transportation, and we all know it's important to have like a reliable car, but man, you can't even quantify how valuable reliable transportation is, and we all know it's valuable, but it's still underrated. It ruins your life. I had a buddy once that got a cavity. He's like, at least if I broke my arm, I could walk around. He goes, I can't think, I can't sleep. You get a cavity, it ruins your life. It's like, last night, the Patriots lost at home against the best coach in football history, 38-9. What would Buffalo have won by against Doug Marrone, Mike Mularkey? $51-3? That was against Belichick at home in a standalone game. And it wasn't even competitive, the gap in talent, speed, playmakers. Bill Belichick, if that's not a wake-up call that he needs to give more personnel power to somebody else outside the organization, I don't know what is. They haven't drafted a skill player that made a Pro Bowl in a decade. I think it was Gronk was the last one they drafted, and he retired once. The numbers are staggering. 11 first downs, 200 total yards. Buffalo had almost 500. Buffalo had the ball for 40 minutes. New England 20. Cam passed for 34 yards. And I talk about transportation being underrated, even though you know it's valuable. Let's just admit it this morning. Tom Brady was undervalued. No, I said it. Despite all the credit, despite us knowing how great he was, despite calling him the GOAT, he was undervalued. I'm going to ask you a question. Try to figure out the answer. New England had a top 10 scoring offense last year. How? Their offensive line is better this year. New England was 12-4 last year. Their only losses were to 3 division winners and a really red-hot Miami team at the end. How? They don't have any players. I mean, this whole thing was always, remember, we always argued, it's the system. You'd see these newspaper articles. You'd see these articles in magazines, clearly New England coaches planting them. It's about the system. I want to talk for a second about the system, because the system got a lot of press. I've never met the system. The system is Josh McDaniels, because Belichick lets Josh run the offense. So Josh McDaniels created a system is very sophisticated. He actually took it to Denver. And so this morning I went and looked up how the system did in Denver. Oh, it was 11-17, fired after 2 years, and in scoring in the NFL, it was 20th and 19th. 20th and 19th. Okay, there are exceptions in life. The system then moved to St. Louis. McDaniels got fired, went to the Rams. Let's see how the system did in scoring. Oh, it was 32nd in the NFL in scoring, dead last. Okay, all right, we'll give him a quarterback. All right, let's give him Cam Newton in the system. He's a former MVP. Oh, they're 28th in scoring. Brady, in 20 years in the system, was never lower and almost always above 7th. They had a top 10 offense last year with that. This garbage. How? Again, the offensive line is better this year than it was last. And you see the duress sometimes. Cam, who's more mobile than Tom, is under. This system is a bunch of nonsense. Tom Brady is the system. He's the system. Because Tom Brady went down. Everybody talks about Bruce Arians. Oh, first year with Bruce Arians. Everybody struggles. Hey, Tom's not. He's going to complete 68% of his throws. His passer rating's going to be over 100. He's going to have like 37 touchdowns and 11 picks. Come on. You tell me. Maybe Bill Belichick? He relies on a system. Because he's won now 46% of his games without Tom Brady. These numbers are staggering. And Cam Newton, again, former MVP. We never said Cam Newton was Tom Brady. Here are the numbers. Tom Brady to Cam Newton. And we went in with realistic expectations for Cam Newton. He didn't get a preseason. He was kind of an odd fit with Belichick, we thought, and Josh McDaniels. Look at the numbers. Brady, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. Cam, 5 touchdowns, 10 picks. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are certain things in life we know are valuable, and they're still not given enough credit. Tom Brady now qualifies. That and a reliable car. So Dwayne Haskins is no longer a member of the Washington football team. Talented kid at Ohio State. I thought he looked like a number 1 pick. Big, strong, football factory, won big games. Not super athletic, but could move a little bit. But, he looked like a number 1 pick at quarterback. Big, strong, stands in the pocket, can take a hit, you can bang off him, he's strong. I asked Urban Meyer one time, I said, is he ready to start in the NFL? And it was a little bit of a warning flag. He's like, nah, not yet. That tells me it's probably some maturity issues. But every 3 or 4 years, there is a college quarterback that comes out. Now, Haskins didn't qualify as this, but we do know now that Haskins simply wasn't mature enough. He just wasn't ready to run a $5 billion franchise. But about every 3 or 4 years on this show, a college quarterback comes out. He's always talented. Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel. I was a little tough on Cam, not as much as Baker or Johnny or Jameis. And I question their maturity. And without exception, the media freaks out, and the fan bases freak out, and everybody freaks out. And do you know why I question maturity? 2 words. Dwayne Haskins. Washington just wasted 2 years babysitting a quarterback. I think we should have a new term for quarterbacks. I had Jimmy Johnson on a couple days ago, and he talked about the 2 things that mattered to him. Number 1 was decision-making. Number 2 was accuracy. Let's just be honest about this singular position. I'm not saying it matters in baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball. I'm not saying it matters at any position except quarterback. But this is the one position in American sports, perhaps international sports, where 2 words are really important. Are you uniquely mature? Because I don't think Dwayne Haskins is any less mature than the average 22-year-old. I don't. I think he's the average 22-year-old. But from now on, let's just all acknowledge that this doesn't matter in hockey, baseball, basketball. I don't even think it really matters in football. But when you draft a quarterback, he's going to have to be almost square, like Andrew Luck and Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. You mature for a 22-year-old. He's going to have to deal with the press. The linebacker won't. He's going to have to deal with the owners and some sponsors. The safety won't. He's going to have to memorize a playbook, not only for himself but his teammates. The defensive tackle won't. Uniquely mature. I'm not blaming the player all the time. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes parents aren't uniquely mature, and you don't find your way until you're 32 years old. But owners can't wait for that. And the problem being is when you get a Baker, or you get a Johnny Manziel, or you get a Dwayne Haskins, who they're just not perfect maturity-wise for the position, they often go to the worst teams. And the worst teams are the most chaotic, with the craziest owners, with the most impatient GMs. It's a Cleveland, it's a Washington, it's a Detroit, it's a Jacksonville, and that just compounds it. But everybody always freaks out. Let's just have a new rule on this show. For one position, in American sports, baseball don't care, basketball, hockey, soccer, football don't care. For quarterback, are you uniquely mature to get the keys to a $5 billion franchise? And if you're not, you're going to be criticized. And that's okay. Because Johnny's out of the league. Dwayne may be out of the league. Jameis, who's talented and productive, is now a backup. I'm not sure if Cam gets another shot, and he's been great this year. But the Dwayne Haskins story is why we ask the questions. It's why we bang on it. Washington spent the last 2 years in a competitive division just babysitting. Can't have it. Not at that position. Anything else? Guard, Mike linebacker, safety, punter, I could deal with it. Can't at quarterback. So I was watching Josh Allen last night, and if I was gonna vote for the MVP this morning, it would be Aaron Rodgers 1, Josh Allen 2, and Mahomes 3. I'll get into that later. But there is a precedent for Josh Allen being absolutely horrible your first year in the NFL, and a year and a half later, maybe being the next great quarterback or in a short list of the next great quarterback. And it's interesting who the precedent is. We've seen it before, and we hear from this person all the time.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals giving you support when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC.
Generally, first impressions with quarterbacks in the NFL are somewhat accurate. You can see great really quickly. Russell Wilson, Brett Favre, John Elway, Peyton Manning. You can see it. Patrick Mahomes, you can see it. You're like, wow. Josh Allen was different. He was awful his first year. 52% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, 12 picks, passer rating in the 60s. And he was bad his last year at college, and then he goes to the NFL, he's bad. But there is a reason why the eye test matters. There is a reason in recruiting you'll find a smaller player who's super productive, but general managers like the size and the arm and the mobility. They like those things. They like big. They like the eye test. They like the feel. Josh Allen, awful as a rookie 2 years later. Outside of Aaron Rodgers, he's my number 2 choice for MVP. He's got more touchdown passes this year than he did in his first 2 years combined. And I think in generally it doesn't work that way. You see a lot of special early. Justin Herbert, a lot of special, not winning a bunch of games yet, but a lot of special. Peyton Manning, Elway, Russell Wilson, Favre, Rodgers. I think his precedent is Troy Aikman. And Troy Aikman was 0 for 11 his rookie year. He had 9 touchdowns, 18 picks, a passer rating in the mid-50s, and completed barely 52% of his throws. Troy was bad. And Josh Allen was bad. But they had something in common, and this is why the look, the size, the arm, some of this stuff's not quantifiable. It's just, it looks like it should work. Troy Aikman looked like he should work. Have you ever been around Troy Aikman in a T-shirt? A couple years ago, I bumped into him. He was out to dinner, and Troy's just big. He got big hands. He's got big chest. Troy's just big. Troy looks like an NFL quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. If you drew a picture of him, you'd like, what's that guy do for a living? He's a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He looks like a quarterback. Josh Allen, big, strong kid. Dad's big. Josh Allen's big. He looks like a quarterback. They both had one thing in common. They were awful their rookie year. But the reason GMs and people fall in love with sort of the size and the arm is if you can just get 3 things right. And Josh Allen and Troy Aikman, 3 things got right. You got him a great young coach, Sean McDermott, Jimmy Johnson. So you got him a good coach. You got him a sharp young coordinator, Norv Turner, Brian Dable. And you got both. They both popped when you get them a developing or a star go-to wide receiver. Every Sunday, they got to take it off the top guy, Stephon Diggs and Michael Urban. And you get the coach right, you get the day-to-day coordinator right, and then you get him a guy that Troy and Josh are driving to the arena, and they know, my guy is better than anybody they got covering my guy. And I'm going to throw it to him about 9 times, I'm going to hit him about 7, and he's going to break 1 or 2. And when I look at Josh, I see a lot of Aikman where it's usually not that bad for the all-time talents as rookies. You see a lot of stuff that's very encouraging. And with both, it was really kind of a mess. You get the coach, you get the coordinator, you get the go-to wide receiver, and 2 years later, Aikman was a Pro Bowler. 3 years later, he was winning Super Bowls and was America's quarterback. And this kid it's crazy. I mean, he is out of this world good. Arm, size, look, cannon, risk taker, a little cocky, just a little cocky. Like Mahomes, he plays with a little, I don't like swagger, just a little cocky. I'm going to make the throw and kind of turn my head a little bit, just let you know, wasn't that hard, I can do it again. Enjoy the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So before we get to the Herdline News, a little bit of breaking news. Mason Rudolph will start Week 17 for the Steelers.
Oh boy, Browns by 30.
So even if the Steelers lose, they can't drop lower than a 3 seed.
So it doesn't matter.
They'll have home field for their first game, and regardless.
And Cleveland needs to win.
Yes.
And just came off a stinker. So it's at Cleveland. The line was 6.5. I'd be shocked if it didn't move to 8 to 8.5. I'll take Cleveland.
Yeah,
in a rout.
I would assume so. So Jared Goff had surgery yesterday to stabilize his right thumb that he broke and dislocated on Sunday, and he'll be out for the Rams' last regular season game. Sean McVay said Goff could return for the playoffs if their season continues past this week. Backup John Wolford is in line to get his first NFL start Sunday against the Cardinals. If the Rams lose to the Cardinals, they need the Bears to lose to the Packers to still make the playoffs.
I think that's going to happen. I think the Rams are going to lose to the Cardinals, and Green Bay is going to beat Chicago.
Well, I mean, similar to what I just said with the Steelers game, I think it's now, the Cardinals should win this game. Goff is not out there. John Wolford's getting his first start.
You know what I thought was
amazing?
amazing?
This game.
I saw a story either today or yesterday. It was like, but he'll be available for the playoffs. I'm like,
Yeah, Sean McVay is saying he could return for the playoffs.
so you break your thumb as a quarterback and you're fine 2 weeks later? That doesn't even sound right. I mean,
Modern medicine, I don't know. They're saying he could do it. I mean, he's obviously not going to be 100%, but it's the playoffs, so if he can play through it, then they're going to make it happen. He's also optimistic, McVay is, that Cam Akers will be able to return from his high ankle sprain this week, but they're uncertain if he's going to be able to play on Sunday as well. So, there's a ton of playoff implications in this weekend. This is basically an additional wildcard weekend with all the winner
Sunday is going to be crazy. It's going to feel like 6 playoff games.
You essentially have to watch every single game.
Chicago Green Bay is a
it's the same for the Cardinals. So
Yeah.
the Cardinals have to win.
Yeah.
I'm with you though. I think the Rams lose and the Bears lose and they still get in. So Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers have been neck and neck in the MVP race for weeks, and Mahomes was in the lead. But according to Fox Bet, Rodgers has now moved ahead of Mahomes as the favorite to win at minus 250.
Yes.
This comes after his 4-touchdown game in the Packers win over the Titans Sunday. This is also the first time this season that Fox Bet has had Rodgers as the odds-on favorite to win the award.
Yeah, I think he feels. I'll tell you another thing. I mean, these guys are all great. The ease in which Aaron Rodgers is playing. Like, he makes it. I think I've told this story before on the air. I remember watching Michael Jordan in the finals against the Phoenix Suns, the Charles Barkley finals, and I was sitting with a girlfriend. And I remember saying to her, it's just so easy for him to score 38. Like, the NBA is filled full of 6'6" guys. I mean, it's like Dominique Wilkins could jump higher, and Barkley could almost handle the ball better. And you'd watch Jordan, and you're like, it just shouldn't be this easy to score 38 in a playoff game. You watch Aaron Rodgers, it is like it's a 7-on-7 drill on some
He's
Sundays.
just in a different zone, and what he has going on with Devontae Adams is just next level. And it's going to go through Lambeau, likely. I mean, they have to determine that this weekend, but I think they're going to handle their business.
How great is this? Baseball helps the big markets because no salary cap. NBA, there are glamour markets, Miami, LA. We could have the playoffs going through Buffalo, Green Bay, and Kansas City. And it's great. I mean, that's or small market New Orleans. Like, if you look at the NFL's secret sauce, little towns in America could host all the playoff games.
If
the big ones.
you run your organization well, you absolutely can. I mean, you can argue that some of the, not well, worse run, but some of the teams that have really been struggling the most are in the biggest cities.
Oh, Washington, Detroit, two New York teams. You're absolute. Philadelphia now is kind of a mess. No, I was thinking about this last night watching Buffalo, and I'm like, this is a little bit of the secret sauce of the NFL, where everybody in America, regardless of where you live, you don't feel you have to overcome anything in the NFL other than let's just not have a crazy owner.
But there's so many elements to it, like free agency. Is so different in the NFL. Like, guys are willing to go to smaller markets to get paid a ton more because your careers are so short.
That's exactly right.
So, like, I can go live in Buffalo for 5 years and make a couple $100 million. Like, I'm cool with that.
Also, shoe deals in the NBA. It helps to be a Laker.
Yes.
Or a Miami Heat. It does help to be in kind of a glamour market with a Pat Riley.
I do think there's also something too, and we're seeing this with Josh Allen. If you're not in a major market, the fan base tends to be a little more patient with developments.
Yes.
And so they're not like turnover, new coach, new quarterback. Like, move these things through. He doesn't come in right away and make a huge difference. There's a little more patience there, and Buffalo's really showed that, because we were just talking about Josh Allen and the steps that he's taken. Would Josh Allen get that kind of patience in Dallas? Would he get that kind of patience as a New York Giant? Like, maybe not. So I think that plays a role in it in the NFL as well. Finally, Notre Dame has the tough task of facing top-ranked Alabama in the playoff on Friday. Can't wait for Friday.
I know.
Just get off work and go watch it.
Anne's not home yet, so I can watch 8 hours of football and nobody yells at me.
Crack a Corona. Is it going to be Corona or is it going to be...
I'm inviting friends over.
It actually might be... It's a soup weekend. It's actually quite cold in LA.
Yes.
I know I usually don't talk about the weather in LA because we're very spoiled, but it's quite cold.
Yes.
It's 40 degrees yesterday. That's legit. Anyway, despite being a huge underdog and suffering a blowout loss in the previous playoff appearance, Brian Kelly doesn't think that the Irish have anything to prove.
We're knocking at the door every year, playing really good teams and great opponents, and there's elite football teams. I don't know why this narrative continues to pop up when we're always in the games. No, we haven't won a national championship. That's correct. I'm not changing the record. But we are there every single year, and we are grinding it out just like everybody else.
You play to win the game.
I know, but I do believe, in fairness to Notre Dame, they have a little more to overcome in the recruiting process. I think where they're at now, it's not a ceiling, because if Saban left Alabama, they'd no longer be as good as they were. But I think what Kelly's done is incredibly redeemable. I think they're the best Notre Dame since Lou Holtz, and they've been trying for 25 years to find Lou Holtz. I think Kelly's great.
Yeah, no, he's great. Notre Dame is great. They've been in a wonderful season, and what he's done with the program is incredible.
Yeah.
you do still have something to prove. You're playing for a national
I
championship.
know. I've known enough people. I could never get into Notre Dame, but I've known enough people that have gone.
I have friends who've gone to Notre Dame. They're way smarter than me. I'm not taking anything away from their academics.
It's hard.
I've got friends that work there. It's a wonderful, wonderful campus and institution. All the credit in the world. But we're talking about football.
I know.
And at the end of the day, you play to win the game. This is about winners and losers. Nobody's saying Notre Dame doesn't belong there, but you absolutely do have something to prove. If you're going to take the next level, you have to win the game. And look, I think we all think this is clearly everyone thinks it's going to be a blowout. I hope it's a good competitive game.
So do I.
But I'm not saying Notre Dame doesn't belong there, but that it is what it is. There's a reason they're having these conversations. Fox Bet has Alabama favored by 20.5 points. And obviously they lost 30-3 to Clemson in the playoff 2 years ago. Either way, I'm looking forward to a nice long day of college football playoffs.
I told you, I have this weird feeling Ohio State has a chance to. You don't, but I don't. Clemson has got to be looking ahead because they've blown out Ohio State a couple of times. They're 3-0 last 4 years against, I think it's Ohio State. Alabama's coming out. I just feel like Clemson will not be quite focused. And I think Ohio State has a huge chip on their shoulder.
I think if there's anything that's going to move the game, it's that. It's Dabo talking, reinforcing why he ranked them where he ranked them.
I think
if there's any of that, if there's anything that's going to smooth this game, it's that, because I just think Clemson is that much better.
Yeah, enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Peter King now joining us, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Football Morning in America, NBCSports.com. I was saying to start the show, Peter, Josh Allen reminds me a little of Troy Aikman. Usually, a star quarterback comes into the league, and we get a lot of glimpses. Like, they're not winning games, but it's like Justin Herbert. You just see the star. Aikman and Josh Allen came in, and it was rough. And you don't see any light. And then 2 years later, they're Pro Bowlers, and then 3 years later, they're winning titles. And they feel a little bit the same. They got the right coach. They got Norv Turner, Brian Dable, the right coordinator. They got a go-to star receiver. What do you make of Josh Allen's improvement? Because I'm telling you, 17 games ago, he was completing 52% of his throws.
Well, two things. Number one, he reminds me more of Jim Kelly in that situation, where Jim Kelly went to a rotten team when he signed out of the USFL. And, fans were crazy, lining the road when he came in. It's the same thing. The Bills fans are crazy for their quarterback, and that's good. Ted Marchibroda was good, very imaginative guy, just like Dable.
Yep.
Now, as far as, the re-tinkering with Josh Allen, this started, Colin, last year at the Super Bowl. When Josh Allen talked to Tony Romo and basically said, hey, I'm a little bit unhappy with my mechanics. I'm going to work on them a little bit. What advice? You watch everybody. What advice do you have? And so Romo didn't, I talked to Romo about this. He didn't retool him totally, but he did give him some advice. And in the offseason, Jordan Palmer, his quarterback coach, worked on it. And remember, there was no ability of Ken Dorsey, Brian Daboll to be hands-on, his quarterback coach and coordinator in Buffalo, because there were no off-season workouts in Buffalo with coaches.
Yeah.
So the best stuff that happened to him happened when he was doing it independently. Then he goes to Buffalo and obviously continues to retool his delivery. And you're absolutely right. His accuracy, you very rarely see a guy who is inaccurate, as inaccurate as he was at Wyoming in his first year in Buffalo, really improved, but he has.
Go back to your preseason predictions. I watched last night. I said it was 38-9. What would it have been? Not Bill Belichick coaching New England. What if you had an average NFL coach? What's the score then? It wasn't competitive. Talent, speed, playmakers. Well, are you shocked?
But you have to ask me this. You have to answer this question first, though. If it's not Bill Belichick, who would have been the quarterback last night? Would the Patriots have just let the market settle and then go buy Cam Newton, for cheap at Walmart? I don't know the answer to that. Belichick went and thought that he was getting Cam Newton. He didn't know what he was getting, really, but he thought he was getting a
Cam Newton than what he was. Colin, Cam Newton now has 5 touchdown passes this year. He's got 5 touchdown passes actually in his last 18 NFL games. It's absurd. I'm not saying absolutely categorically it's over for Cam Newton, but the Patriots have got to do something at quarterback different in 2021, and they know it. Their roster is not very good.
Yeah.
Why do you think Tom Brady was so anxious to leave last January?
Yeah.
There's a reason. The roster's not very good, and there are no skill players that scare any defensive coordinator in football.
Urban Meyer's name is now being mentioned by a couple of people, and it's interesting. Before Tom Coughlin was at Boston College, he was a wide receiver coach in the NFL for a long time. Pete Carroll was in the NFL before college, then to the NFL. Jim Harbaugh played in the NFL, and he also first job coaching quarterbacks, I think, for the Raiders. Matt Rule coached in it. Cliff Kingsbury played in it. So Urban's a college legend, but he's got no DNA at all in the NFL. I think it's concerning. What do you make of the rumors and your thoughts on it?
Urban Meyer retired either for health reasons or some other reason as a college football coach at age 45, age 46, and age 54. And now there are these rumors about Urban Meyer coaching an NFL team and taking over an NFL team. Now, Colin, I talked to somebody who knows Urban Meyer very well yesterday, and this person said, look, he had no idea whether Meyer was going to get reinvolved. Going to get back in coaching or not. But the pro game is totally different. People have said, well, you don't have to recruit all the time. But the pro game is different because what you have to do is you have to go up against the best play callers in the business. There's a lot of Urban Meyers who are really smart on offense. And what you have to do is you have to win in free agency. You have to win in the draft. How good will he be drafting players? And I repeat, this is a guy who's retired 3 times in the last 11 years. So, I mean, if I'm a team looking for a head coach, I'm interested in Urban Meyer, but I'm drilling down very, very heavy, and we're spending half of our interview talking about what happened and how do I know you're not going to walk into my office 18 months from now and pull a Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Things get hard. You don't win the first couple of years, and you say, this isn't for me. And he knows he can go back to TV. He doesn't need the money. And so I don't know, Colin. I personally, I'd rather have a young, hungry guy. Who really is desperate for the job. And that's what I would do. But again, I'm not saying he's not a good candidate. I'm saying you better take his history into account.
Yeah, no, the interview is going to be substantial and important. So Dwayne Haskins, it's funny. Joey and I were talking about this yesterday. It didn't even feel good with no preseason. There were these stories coming out. Ron Rivera was losing patience with Dwayne Haskins before the season started, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not the kind of, if it's leaking out and somebody wants it out, are you shocked how fast it deteriorated for Haskins in D.C.?
I am shocked about it, but, Dwayne Haskins is the one who, on Sunday night, went to a strip club unmasked. There was a big crowd there. There was a lot of people there, and so where else in the United States could there have been more of a threat? And I'm exaggerating here, but I mean, clearly, there was a threat that you could have gotten COVID that day, and the next day, just walk into your team facility like nothing happened. Like, boy, I hope nobody finds out about what I did last night. And clearly, they did find out about it. But, Colin, the NFL has these protocols in place, and I blame, as much as I blame Dwayne Haskins, I blame Ron Rivera for basically saying, oh, he's okay. He's all right. He apologized. He put his entire roster at risk of catching COVID. That's number one. And number two, where's the NFL? Where is the NFL with all of these protocols? And
beating up all these teams for violating these protocols and taking away the Denver quarterbacks and the Cleveland receivers. I'm not blaming them for doing that. But where are they? Where is the NFL when Dwayne Haskins does what he does and the NFL says nothing the entire week, does nothing the entire week, and basically just says, well, the Washington football team is handling this. A very bad look for the team, for the player, and for the NFL.
NBC Sports, Peter King. It is a Tuesday. Love having you on. Happy holidays to you and your fam, Peter.
Thanks, Colin.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health because we're fed up with the way our country has ignored public health for so long. Those days are over. And our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to your life, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deepti as we seek truth in health. Contact World's podcast is the voice of the people and your opportunity to improve public health and health equity. So subscribe to Contact World and tell your friends, because we all deserve the right information, not misinformation. Visit contact.world to learn more. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's been 30 years since the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210. 30 years since we walked the halls of West Beverly High, and since we all hung out at the Beach Fit. Relive it all with Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling on their new podcast, 90210 OMG. We get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happened. Join them as they rewatch every episode of the beloved 90s TV show from the very beginning. Listen to 90210 OMG on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Dave Wannstedt comes in next hour, and I'm bringing Dave Wannstedt on today. Dave has coached in college and the pros, so he knows what it's like, Urban Meyer, to go college coach to pro coach, go from dealing with an athletic director to a crazy billionaire owner. He also knows there are big changes, college to pro football. So Dave Wannstedt next hour on that Urban Meyer topic, among many. Also, he knows the Bears really well, and he's been staying in my ear all year. You can win with Trubisky, maybe not a Super Bowl, and right now Chicago's on fire, so we'll talk about that. So most people in the media don't like blowback. They don't want, especially with social media now, people are calling you out, and a lot of media people just don't want it. And so there's not a ton of courage in media. People sort of follow what everybody else says, or they don't want to criticize really popular politicians or really popular people. And like Patrick Mahomes, he's likable, he's great, he's won a Super Bowl. Nobody wants to, ever push back a little bit on this, but right now, and I'm not into awards much, but this year I am, because I think Aaron Rodgers is easily the MVP of the season, and I think after last night, Josh Allen is number 2, and I think Patrick Mahomes is 3. It's not a criticism of it, but I grade on a curve. I'm not giving it to you because you were great in September and October. No NFL season has ever been determined in September. In fact, Bill Belichick, his worst month is September. Like, that's his experiment month. Sean Payton and Bill Belichick make an argument, 2 best coaches in football last 15 years are bad September coaches and great December coaches. So Mahomes got off to a better start. But right now Kansas City offensively is underachieving and Buffalo is exploding. So if you go to let's go to the last 4 games of Mahomes and Allen. Okay, it's not close. But that's kind of a small sample size. It wouldn't be fair. I mean, like, completion percentage, one guy at 60 Mahomes, one guy at 70. Passer rating, Mahomes at 89, one guy at 117. It's not really close. But that's kind of small, so let's almost double it. Let's go to the last 7 games. Edge Josh Allen. Much higher completion percentage, slightly better TD to interception ratio, and a better passer rating. Yards passing per game, that goes to Mahomes, who has much better weapons. So this is something that we have a history, a precedent of it. Like in college football, you don't allow September and October to define the Heisman. Carson Palmer freshman at USC. His first 6 games that year, he had 9 touchdowns and 6 picks. He was bad. His next 6, he had 23 TDs, 4 picks, and he won the Heisman based on what should matter. The end of the season. The last 6 games for USC. I think that year they beat Iowa in an Orange Bowl. Right now, in the last 2 months, Allen is slightly better. In the last month, he is significantly better. And I think he's number 2 in the MVP race. I don't think it's terribly close. I think it's Aaron's year. I think he's been remarkable. And that's how I see it. I wanted to say this about Clemson-Ohio State play Friday. Dabo Swinney got a lot of heat because in his last poll, he put Ohio State at 11. And, his thing is, I'm sorry, but they didn't play enough games. But it is interesting. You know how sometimes if you have what you perceive as a rivalry, one person sees it as a real rivalry and one doesn't. Michigan looks at Ohio State, whoa, what a rivalry. Ohio State looks at it like a win, like a comfortable win. So the last 4 years, Clemson has played Ohio State. In the last 4 years, Clemson has beaten Ohio State twice, average margin of victory, almost 19 points. In the last 4 years, Clemson has played Syracuse 4 times. Clemson wins by only 15, and they're 3-1. So in Clemson's eyes, you can make an argument that Syracuse has given them about as much trouble as Ohio State. And Clemson looks at Ohio State and thinks, well, there's only one roadblock for us to a national championship. The SEC champ. It could be LSU, it could be Alabama. Maybe some year it'll be. That's how they see it. So if you look at Dabo Swinney against Ohio State, he's 3-0. He wins comfortably in most, and they've averaged winning by about 15 points. Now you could say, Colin, last time they played, Ohio State jumped out to a very big lead. They led like 16-0. Well, this year, Boston College led Clemson 28-10. It's not like in the ACC they never fall behind or never lose a game. Syracuse gives them problems. Boston College this year. I mean, I think Ohio State views it as a rivalry, and I think Clemson looks at it, and I think Clemson knows Ohio State's good enough to beat them. I mean, again, I think a couple years ago, didn't like Pittsburgh beat Clemson? You can lose to anybody almost. But I think Michigan sees Ohio State's rivalry differently than Ohio State. Ohio State's like better players, better coach, we win, and we win comfortably. And maybe all Clemson looks at Ohio State that way. Maybe they do. I don't know. Now I do think the line's only 7.5, 8. But still, Ohio State losing by 7.5 or 8. It's not a touchdown game. It's more than that. Just saying, maybe that's how Dabo views it. Like, we're gonna win. We win this game. I'm 3-0. We win comfortably. This is that's how I see him. More talented than Syracuse, but it always feels about the same. Better.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I love being able to share my story with you on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and we get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. Hey, it's going to be your church and your turn up. So listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams every Tuesday, a part of the Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's been 30 years since the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210. 30 years since we walked the halls of West Beverly High, and since we all hung out at the Peach Pit. Relive it all with Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling on their new podcast, 90210 OMG. We get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happened. Join them as they rewatch every episode of the beloved 90s TV show from the very beginning. Listen to 90210 OMG on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Over the last 20 years, the U.S. economy might have gained up to $16 trillion if the racial wealth gap didn't exist. But it does, and it needs to end. With Action for Racial Equity, Citi is working to provide greater access to banking and credit in communities of color, increase investment in Black-owned businesses, and expand homeownership among Black Americans. Because closing the racial wealth gap creates a better, more prosperous future for everyone. Learn more about Citi's Action for Racial Equity at citi.com/racial equity. It's pretty easy these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so but together we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app. By searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. Hour 2. We're just talking about pizza and chicken wings during the break. Live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. 15 minutes, Dave Wannstedt stops by. He's done the college to pro thing. We're going to talk about the Urban Meyer stuff. Joy Taylor's joining me. So my first job out of college, Joy, where was yours?
My first job out of college was a temp agency.
A temp agency?
Yes. No, I worked. I wasn't a temp. I worked at the temp agency.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And so, all right. And so did you make a lot of money?
No.
Okay.
No.
So my first job out of college, I was poor.
No, your first job out of college. That was my very first job. That was my first job, period.
And then first job out of college.
First job out of college, like in the business?
Yeah.
Oh, I was a part-time producer for Sid Rosenberg.
So I know you made no money.
No, I made $8.50 before taxes.
So my first job out of college, I was in Vegas, and so I made no money for 2 years. I was a sales guy, and they gave me 1 inning of play-by-play. Las Vegas Stars. And there was this place called the Tap House.
That's so local radio.
It's so local radio. So it was called the Tap House. It was owned by a guy named Jim. He's from Ohio, big Browns fan. And they had like, and I'm not joking, it was like 99 cents for half a dozen wings. So I got addicted to bar food. Draft beer.
It happens.
Everybody's got something. So to this day, I've never had a chicken wing in my life. I grew up in rural Washington. I had chickens at my house. I never had a chicken wing. And so all of a sudden, I got addicted to it in Vegas. Because Vegas has a million bars and a million lounges. And last night, I ordered chicken wings from Fresh Brothers Pizza. God, it was so good.
So the reason we were talking about this in the break is because Colin will casually, at least once a week, mention this pizza place, and then he does it, and then I can't help but order pizza. Like it's like a time clock. Like within the next 48 hours, I'm going to order pizza.
Pavlovian kind of.
It is. I'll get home, start to get hungry, I'm like,
there's nothing better than chicken wings.
Chicken wings and pizza? It's a pretty solid meal.
It's the best ever. All right, it's the Herd Hierarchy. It's my top 10 teams in the NFL. Let's not waste any time. Here we go.
Herd Hierarchy.
Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Listen, I'm still going to put the Cleveland Browns into it. The Jets game, they were missing too many players. Here's what worries me. Not that they've lost 2 of 3. What worries me is they're the only team with a winning record in the NFL and a negative point differential, and that's something Vegas looks at. That is not a Super Bowl winning team. They're a playoff team, and I do think they'll beat Pittsburgh Sunday and make it in. They have the best, highest graded offensive line in the NFL. I've told you before, they remind me of the Dallas Cowboys. Dak's rookie year. Great running game, great O-line, talented but limited quarterback, and they get there. Win or lose, probably lose their first playoff game, Cleveland at 10.
Number 9.
I don't even know what to make of the Chicago Bears. I think it's the nuttiest turnaround I've ever seen. They were awful. They lost 6 straight games and everybody was getting fired. Now they've scored 30-plus points in 4 straight games. Chicago hasn't done that since the 60s. Matt Nagy is hot. Trubisky, for all his issues, is 25-12 during the Matt Nagy era. They're on a 3-game winning streak. If they can beat the Packers they're in, I do not think they'll beat the Green Bay Packers, but I like their defensive personnel. Trubisky does run around a lot. They got a little bit of a Baltimore feel to them, that they're a little contrarian to the league. They throw good enough if the running game is moving, and frankly, the coaching staff, Matt Nagy deserves a ton of credit, because I thought this team was dead. There was a shovel, and I was about 2 scoops from buried officially. Now they're at 9.
Number 8.
Miami Dolphins. I do worry, not psychologically that Tua was benched, but he's struggling. He's not throwing for a lot of yards. It's a lot of safe stuff, underneath stuff. Doesn't move the chains, a lot of 3 and outs. They have won 4 of their last 5. The Chiefs is their only loss. Their defense is number 1 in the NFL scoring defense. you know what they feel like? They feel like a playoff team, but they can't win a playoff game. It's very much a Cleveland feel, but I like their coach better than Cleveland's. Not that I don't like Kevin Stefanski, but I think Brian Flores is the next superstar coach in this league. Miami at 8.
Number 7.
Baltimore Ravens. I probably have them low. Listen, the running game is rolling. They're good on third down. Lamar's absolutely on fire. If they beat the Bengals, they're in. In the last 4 games, points, rushing, third down, and passer rating, Lamar's top 3. I have the same questions you do. What can they do in the postseason? How will they be trailing against an elite playoff team? I don't know the answers. That's why I put them at 7, but I would not have any interest playing Baltimore if I'm in the AFC.
Number 6.
Tampa Bay. I put him at 6 because of Tom Brady. He's been in so many playoff games and so many close games that you give him the edge over Baltimore. Last 3 games, I know it's against junk defenses, but he's absolutely on fire. Here's what worries me, though. This is why I do not think they're a Super Bowl winning team. They're 9-0 against teams that are 500 or worse. They're 1-5 against winning teams. There's a Mike Tyson quality. They beat up on average fighters. But you put them in a Lennox Lewis or an Evander Holyfield, and somebody punches back, and they just don't have a second or a third gear. I will say, Brady and Mike Evans are really aligned right now. Brady is using Gronk more. Ronald Jones, who's explosive, will come back. So I think they're clearly capable of winning a playoff game or 2.
Number 5.
Seattle Seahawks. I worry about their offensive line. Can you win a Super Bowl with that offensive line? But since Jamal Adams got healthy and Carlos Dunlap came over, they have solved their pass rush issue, which has simultaneously helped their okay corners. They need to draft a cornerback, and everybody in the building knows it. I got a Super Bowl coach. I got a winning quarterback. I mean, that Rams game is exactly what the Seahawks do. Their offense looks like junk for 3.5 hours. And then Russell end of the half, Russell end of the game, you look up and you're like, okay, you want another division. So their scoring defense since Week 10 has held each of the last 5 opponents under 20 points, and that matters.
Number 4.
The Saints. I've got a concern, though. Since coming back from the rib injuries, I speak from experience. I have a rib injury. He's got an 83 passer rating, and Drew Brees is completing 56% of his throws. It worries me. I'd love for him to take a week or 2 off. And they've allowed 30-plus points in back-to-back games because they're not moving the chains, because they're giving the ball back. I do think, when healthy, this is the best overall roster in the NFL. I do think they're a tough matchup for Green Bay, but right now, because Drew isn't quite right, I put him at 4.
Number 3.
Kansas City. Yes, they've won 7 straight games, all by 6 points. That's not a top team in the NFL. They've got 7 giveaways in the last 3 games. They have the worst red zone defense in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes struggled in December. 8 touchdowns, 5 turnovers, and a passer rating in the high 80s. Again, as Trent Dilfer said, their floor is really high. They play poorly and win. But at some point, that's in the regular season. You're going to face the best coaches and the best coordinators and the best teams and the best momentum in the next 2 weeks, and they're just not clicking.
Number 2.
Green Bay. My only concern is they had the easiest schedule in the NFL. A lot of this feels like fluff, but their scoring offense is profound. Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, their 2 key weapons, both healthy. The offensive line is good enough. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. Aaron looks comfortable. Matt LaFleur, I think, is improved. I think they're a better second half offense than they were last year, where I thought they were very good on script, very average post halftime. They feel like the second best team, and they are humming and hitting on all cylinders. Kansas City's not. That's why they're above them.
Number 1.
Buffalo, 3rd week in a row. They're a Hail Mary from 9 straight wins, 24-plus points in 8 games. Their defense now is playing well, and that's their question. They've held 4 of their last 5 opponents under 20. Stephon Diggs is essentially uncoverable. He's the hottest receiver in the league, he and Devontae Adams. So they give me everything. They give me clever coaching, playmakers, star quarterback, weaponry on the outside, playing great situational defense. I think Buffalo's the best team in the league, Green Bay second. 53rd, and the best roster, in my opinion, New Orleans at 4. Seattle 5, and Jamal Adams will be joining us next hour. We wanted Jamal on today. We asked, and he said, okay, I'll come on the show. That's all we have to do, folks. We're like the handsome guy. We just ask people out, and they say, yeah, all the time. It's just an amazing thing. So I saw this story today. It's funny. The headline reads, Ravens offense not built to win a Super Bowl. Okay, so I want to give you, these are what I think are very important offensive stats. And the headline is, Ravens offense. It's not their defense. It's that offense. You just can't win a Super Bowl. That crazy offense. Okay, so I think 4 things matter in the playoffs. Can you run the ball? They're number 1 in the NFL. Are you good on third down? Can you keep it away from a Mahomes or a Josh Allen? Can you move the chains? They're 4th in the NFL. Yards per play. Are you somewhat dynamic? Well, they're better than the middle of the pack. They're 13th. Points per game. Hey. It's 2020. All the rules are offense. Can you win a shootout? They're 8th. That's who Baltimore is offensively. Number 1 rushing. Top 4 third down. Top 8 points a game when everybody's scoring, and 13th in yards per play. So 2 years ago, the New England Patriots won a Super Bowl. Let's look at those offense. Nobody ever said they can't win a Super Bowl in New England because of their offense. So points per game, they were definitely better. But rushing, they couldn't rush the ball like Baltimore. Yards of play, mostly the same. Third down percentage, much worse than Baltimore. Let's go 2 years ago. Philadelphia won a Super Bowl. They were about the same yards per play. Third down percentage was worse. Rushing was worse. Points a game better. Nobody talked about Philadelphia's offense can't win a Super Bowl. Yeah, 2 years ago New England. 3 years ago Philadelphia. Baltimore stacks up just fine. By the way, in the last month, because I do think momentum matters, how are you playing now? Baltimore's offense, you can't win a Super Bowl with. Number 1 in rushing. Number 1 third down conversion. Number 1 yards per play. 2nd in scoring. I don't get it. If I have to hear people whine about Baltimore's offense, number 1 in the league rushing, great on third down, top 8 in scoring, yards per play, an issue earlier this year when Lamar struggled, currently number 1 in the last month. Now, Baltimore may not win a Super Bowl. Is their defense good enough? I mean, they got to get through Kansas City and Buffalo. I mean, let's face it. Even Tennessee and Cleveland, Miami, they're good teams. If I have to hear again how Lamar can't pass and you can't win with this offense. Every time I watch them, they're dropping 28 on somebody. Every time I watch them, I don't see any 7s. You can't win a Super Bowl with New England's offense. Right now, the Rams' offense. You can't win it with Cincinnati's offense. You can't win it with the Jets' offense. You can't win it with the Giants' offense. You can't win it with Philadelphia's. You can't win it with Washington's. There are teams that you can't win a Super Bowl with those offenses. You can't win it with Detroit's. You can win it with Baltimore's. Dave Wannstedt's good yesterday because he's always a good guest. Got great stories. But he was with Jimmy Johnson. They won a national championship in college. Then they went to the NFL. The difficulties bridging those two. They're like 2 different sports. Urban Meyer, the word today is teams in the NFL, multiple teams are interested. That when we come back.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals giving you support when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities, LLC. Member FINRA, SIPC.
The final Sunday of the regular season kicks off with the Cowboys in a must-win game against the Giants. Then the Bears try to find their way into the playoffs against the Packers squad gunning for the top seed in the NFC. For other regional action, check local listings for the games in your area only on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
It's just going to be a great weekend. And by the way, there's no Thursday game.
Yeah.
Everything's been no Saturday games. It's all jammed to Sunday, so Sunday and next Monday's show, it's going to be no Monday Night Football. Everything's on Sunday.
This is it. It's like a bonus wildcard weekend.
It's a bonus wildcard weekend. One of my friends, he was a Bears head coach. In fact, the Dolphins head coach. Last time the Dolphins won a playoff game was under Wannstedt years and years ago. He won a defensive coordinator national title with the Miami Hurricanes. Won a Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson, defensive coordinator. And he is now joining me live, Fox Sports NFL analyst in about to be snowy and cold Chicago. So let's start with this. So I said Josh Allen reminds me a little of Troy Aikman. Kind of a disaster in year one. But the size and the arm and the confidence that you kind of looked at Troy. I remember this, and you're like, it's gonna work, but it's a mess. And then 2 years later, Josh Allen's great, and Troy Aikman was a Pro Bowler. Do you see any similarities with the two? You were there for Troy.
Yeah, I was, and obviously the supporting cast. You look at Stephon Diggs has made a huge difference. And when we were in Dallas, obviously getting Emmett and adding a couple offensive linemen and making some adjustments to give him more support that way. That helped also. So I do see a lot of similar things. They're both big, strong guys. Josh Allen, and Troy was a great athlete. I remember seeing him play basketball and in high school. But we didn't. Troy never ran as much as Josh Allen does. If I'm defending the Bills right now, yes, am I, concerned about the passing game and Diggs? But you also have to account for him using his legs and making a play. The guy's deceiving with his foot speed.
Yeah, very rarely a 6'6" guy can run, but Josh Allen can absolutely run. So you've been on this for months. You said, listen, I could win a bunch of games with Trubisky. Matt Nagy can win a bunch of games with Trubisky, but you got to play what works for Mitch Trubisky. So you're not shocked, I would imagine, what's happened in Chicago in the last month.
No, not at all. And I said that when they were having a debate in August, and we talked about it on our show, Colin, who should start, Foles or Trubisky? And I said, I think Trubisky, but you got to do what he can do best to give him a chance to succeed. And I really think, looking back on it now, that Matt Nagy and the whole organization, they had their mind made up. Nick Foles was going to be the guy. Because he was going to be the guy that can help me be a player coach on the field. When that did not work out, now, and you got to give Nagy credit for this, okay? And people are tough on him here, but he was able to take his ego, and his comment was he stood aside and said, hey, I'm willing to give up the play calling. I'm willing to do whatever I have to for what's best for this organization and this football team. And he has done it. So, there's not many head coaches that would do that, particularly when you're an offensive play caller, and that's why you got hired. And now that they've made this change, Trubisky's, he's over 2-1 touchdowns. His quarterback ratings in the high 80s. And there's a lot of excitement. They should sign him back next year. I would franchise him until they can figure out, hey, is he going to be the guy for the next 10 years?
I know, that just sounds ridiculous.
I
know. A month and a half ago, it sounded crazy. But, I said this, it's a little like Baltimore's offense. They don't throw it like the top teams, but there's an athletic quotient here that's hard to defend. They're both very good. And because you can roll the pocket with Trubisky, it's funny, I watched the Rams play this weekend, Dave, and I thought Trubisky would fit McVay's offense. And I think Goff would fit Nagy's offense, but that's the reality is that I do think Trubisky can work for coaches, and I think you've been right on that thing.
And they started running the ball too, Colin. All of a sudden, David Montgomery, the running back from Iowa State, everybody's saying, oh, wow, what are we doing different? They're not doing anything different except giving him the football. And he's one of 4 backs in the NFL that are 1,000-yard rushers.
So you're a former Miami Dolphin coach. You won a playoff game there. They bench Tua for the second time. Right thing to do? Is it difficult to do? Where do you land on that?
It's not. I don't think it's difficult. And Brian Flores is a strong candidate for Coach of the Year. I'm going to give him credit because at the end of the day, if things like this don't work out, you're going to get the blame or take the responsibility. But the guy, I don't know if they still give an award. I know they did one back in the day when we got started. If there's an award for Assistant Coach of the Year, the guy that gets the vote is Chan Gailey, their offensive coordinator. Chan was my offensive coordinator at the Dolphins when I was there. Then I went and worked for him up in Buffalo. Fitz was our quarterback there. Okay, then Chan went to the Jets. Fitz was his quarterback at the Jets when he was the offensive coordinator. And I'm telling you, the quarterback, Chan, is with these two guys all day long. And this is not something that is happening during the game. In other words, Brian Flores is not walking up to him saying, we're making a change. To having a scenario like they have right now, and like what they did on Sunday, this is something that was talked about prior. And I think it's the right thing to do because if Tua is in it and he struggles, everybody's going to say, well, he's a young quarterback. But the guy that they really believe in, and I promise you, those players believe in Fitzmagic right now because of his experience more than they believe in Tua. But let's say, hey, let's put Tua in there. If things go great, he throws touchdowns, we win, we win. But if we don't, we got that security blanket, and Fitz has done it, and he can do it for us.
Yeah, and players, I do believe, Tony Gonzalez told me Sunday, because if I was a player, I'd want Ryan Fitzpatrick, because he's right now, this moment, he's the better quarterback. So I want us to spend some time on this. We both know and like Urban Meyer. We think he's great. But college and pro football is different. So when you and Jimmy win national championships in Miami, and then you go to Dallas, what was the first thing or two that you realized, okay, this is a lot different? What was it?
In fact, I think Buddy Ryan had the quote. He says they're going to find out that there's no East Carolinas in the NFL. And one of our coaches, Tony Wise, told Jimmy, he's wrong. We're the new East Carolina. But seriously, the first thing you learn this real quick. You take an NFL job. The number one most important person, one is your owner, two is your owner, and three is your owner. So if Urban is thinking about this and he's going to make the transition, you better make sure that you and the owner have a rapport. I think the second thing, and Urban's a big, and I know him, and I know guys that work for him, real close guys, and his thing, no one's done a better job, maybe Saban, you might arguably close, of recruiting talented players, but then developing them. So he's going to be involved in the personnel. And that's what Jimmy did. I mean, if Jimmy wanted to, if he saw a player that didn't meet all the measurements, and he wanted to draft him, we drafted him, and nobody questioned that. And I think that Urban's got to, number two, got to get into a situation where the rapport with the general manager, hey, there's a lot of guys, Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, it's the GM and the head coach work together, but it's a veteran team, Colin. If you're going in where Urban's going in, and we did at Dallas, we kept the veteran guys that were going to buy in, but we turned that team around. The first Super Bowl, we had the youngest team in the NFL, and we kind of had a college mentality. And I think so. If Urban is looking, he's got to look to a team that's going to have a young, basically a young foundation, and it starts with a quarterback. And Troy was our guy, and Jimmy and Troy, had the good rapport, and the quarterback's going to be the face of the franchise. The head coach, I mean, you don't want to go in with a veteran guy and try to convince him that this is the way you're going to do it. And then the last thing, okay, this is important. You got to get assistant coaches and run systems. There's a lot of different ways. When we went to Dallas, and I'll give you a story. We got crushed that first year by the Kansas City Chiefs. And they had a big running back, Christian Okoye. They ran up and down the field. It was one of the worst games we had. And I'm watching the tape the next day, and Jimmy walked down the hall. And I remember this conversation, and it was about mid-season. And I said, hey, Jimmy, you got a second? And he came in. It was just the two of us there. And I said, you know what? Look at Kansas City. They're running this under defense. Maybe what we're doing, you think that our college defense, because that's what we did. I took the playbook right from what we did in Miami, and we installed it with the Cowboys. And I said, look at this. And I said, and then the Giants won the Super Bowl like a year or two before. Parcells and them are running a 3-4. You think our defense, I mean, are we doing the right thing? And he said, let me tell you something. We know our defense better than they do, okay? And we got to get players to fit in here, and we got to keep coaching like super coaching, and we all know the results we'll get. Well, guess what? Fast forward, now we're winning games, we win Super Bowls, and to this day, they still call that defense that we brought from Miami and put it in Dallas. It got labeled the College 4-3, and that's where it originated. And it was just because of, hey, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So my point is this, that Urban's got to get some assistant coaches, and he's not he's on top of it. He kind of runs it like Jimmy does it, like a lot of the guys do it. He's a big picture guy. I'm going to be involved in everything. But he's not one of those play caller guys, is my point. So he's got to get a couple assistant coaches if he goes this route, and he believes in the system, and they've got to get players to fit that system. So that's the three things that I think: the owner, personnel decisions, and then get a couple systems that you believe in, and you got to get players to build around that.
Well, that was good. I learned a lot right there. You got a good memory there. So what's it like in Chicago? Like, is it 9 degrees, 15 if I came there for the weekend? What is it?
We're going to get about I'm looking at the city right here. See, there I am. I'll give you a little tour right there. We are expecting about 4 to 6 inches of snow by the time we wake up in the morning. The city, it's cold, but everybody's in a good mood because the Bears are winning.
I don't blame them.
I got my Monsters and Midway sweatshirt on. I'm ready to light a cigar and walk down the street here.
All right, love to join you. I will soon enough when it warms up. Good seeing you, Coach.
All right, Colin.
Dave Wannstedt. I've never met a guy with more stories. He has so
Excellent memory.
Oh, it's unbelievable. But his whole thing was, you got to get the owner right. You got to have a say in the personnel, and you better bring systems and believe in the systems. And he mentioned something that's he kind of glazed over it, but this is a big deal. There's two types of coaches in the NFL. There's the they call them walk-around guys. Jimmy Johnson's a walk-around guy. They just kind of walk around the whole practice. Belichick tends to be a walk-around guy. Now Sean Payton's not a walk-around guy. Sean Payton's in that offensive room, and he's doing the mad scientist thing, and he lets defense do its own thing. So Jimmy Johnson was known as a walk-around guy. Belichick's a walk-around guy. I think Pete Carroll's known as a walk-around guy. And that's what he was saying. Urban Meyer's reputation is he just kind of walks around, the special teams coach. He's just constantly tightening the screws on everything. Sean Payton, I've been told, is more, I'm going to go to this side of the ball, and we're just going to be smarter, and I'm going to spend all my time here. Not that, so you can win Super Bowls with both. But I think Urban has kind of a walk-around guy mentality, which is Jimmy was that. Big picture guy. I'm going to go coach my coaches.
Right.
I'm going to coach my coaches, not just the players.
Well, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think where a lot of new head coaches fail is they don't hire the right assistants. It's really important. That's not a time to be doing favors. Like, you gotta hire people that you believe in and that believe in what you're doing.
Yep, good stuff, Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, Washington released Dwayne Haskins yesterday after nearly 2 seasons with the team. He expressed disappointment in this decision, but is also hopeful he'll get another chance in the NFL. He said, it's been a long week, hardest work week of my life. All good things come to an end eventually. Just thankful I was even able to get drafted, thankful to even come home, and praying and hoping for another opportunity. I have no doubt in my mind that I can overcome this, that I can grow, that I can be a better person, better athlete, better quarterback, better leader because of this.
Well, he's big and strong and throws an accurate ball, so he's going to get a second chance over it. Now, it may not be a franchise guy, but he will be invited to a camp because he's 6'5", he's got a big arm, he throws an accurate football, and there are people that will just say he needs to grow on. You almost always get a second chance if your issue is you got to grow on. Nobody's saying he can't throw, he's too small. Like, it's not a talent thing, it's he just needs to grow up a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a talent thing because if he was playing like not even MVP level. If he was playing average, they would be running away with this division with the defense that they have, and they would be a little more flexible on what happens. Because as we know, the tolerance for mistakes generally has a balance with how much talent and production that you have.
Right.
They're in jeopardy of losing the division, and if he was playing better, that might not be happening. So there's a reason why he's cut. Right? They're not cutting Patrick Mahomes. So Patrick Mahomes wouldn't do this, but we all know how this works. He will get another opportunity in the league because, as we've seen with many teams, especially this year, it helps to have a back has starting experience.
And he's also there's still 4 or 5 teams in this league that have kind of your traditional pocket guy, and that's where he fits. He's not an athlete. Like you're not going to move the pocket with him, but just like how valuable would a backup quarterback be for like the Rams this weekend? A big, strong kid who can make throws. Like what we've learned about this league is you will have. I mean, unless it's Tom Brady, you will go to your backup quarterback every couple of years.
I think it was Jimmy Johnson. I don't want to misquote him, but I think it was Jimmy who said like the second most important position on your team is backup quarterback.
He will play unless it's Tom Brady.
Look at the Saints the past 2 years.
Look at Philadelphia.
Look at Philadelphia.
Rams
Look
now.
at the Rams.
Chicago.
Look at the Raiders. Chicago.
Miami.
Yes, it's very important to have a strong, and what the Steelers did last year. Like, it's very important to have a strong backup quarterback. So he's going to get another opportunity. Look, at the end of the day, if I was Ron Rivera, I don't think I would have. I think I would have cut him immediately. I understand. The only reason I feel like Haskins was even out there this week is because he felt an obligation to the rest of the guys on the team to put the best player on the field and not punish everyone else for Haskins' decision. But he's going to get another opportunity. In the league. So Cam Newton was benched for Jarrett Stidham in the third quarter of the Patriots' 38-9 loss to the Bills last night, and after the game he expressed his frustration with how his season in New England has gone.
So you can kind of understand the frustration that I do have when I don't have the outcome because I'm sacrificing so much. Talking to a person who ain't seen his kids in 3 months. Submitting myself to this team is something that I've been doing since day one. Being accessible. And yeah, it's frustrating. I've sacrificed so much this year. And I mean, it hurts.
I'm just fascinated. I've been to JCPenney. I've never seen that jacket. I've been to the Gap. I don't understand. Where does he get his clothes?
That is not a JCPenney coat. Cam's got a whole fashion situation.
Does he have a line?
No, I don't think he has a line, but I'm sure he has a style. Actually, I don't know if he's a stylist. It might be his own. But
I've never seen any of his clothes
I would
anywhere.
have a hard time thinking that he doesn't have someone helping him with like source clothing and getting exclusive pieces and stuff.
I've been to J. Crew. Never seen that jacket.
That's not a J. Crew.
I've been to Abercrombie and Fitch.
Not an Abercrombie coat. I don't know what that coat is, but I'm sure it's pricey and I'm sure it's exclusive. Cam has got is he the best? Yeah, I think he's the best dressed.
Oh God, yes. There's not even a
I'm trying to think of a second. It's not coming.
There isn't one, I don't think.
No, not a close second. It's like Russell Westbrook and Cam Newton.
That's it.
Best dressed in
I mean, in
sports.
terms of stylish,
Yeah. I mean, like, no one else could wear that. Like, Cam wears that and he pulls it off. Anyone else wearing that is just, you have to have the full entire swag and confidence to pull off extreme pieces, and he does with these. Now, the situation with the Patriots is a different situation. I don't put this all on Cam. This is an extreme situation for Cam to go into. Now, look, did Cam have played better? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Is he having trouble throwing the ball? Absolutely. But the Patriots are in big trouble. And this is not a surprise. The Patriots were in big trouble well before Cam got there. We were talking about this well before Cam got there. I thought they were going to be the worst team in the AFC East.
They are.
They are.
And it's
like,
really...
I mean, like, obviously the Jets are worse,
right
but
now
the Jets are in a
team.
better situation moving forward
as
well.
That's New England's issue. It's not just about that team. They're now picking 14th in the draft. So, okay, Trevor Lawrence is gone. The Wilson kid out of BYU is gone. Justin Fields is gone. Trey Lance is gone. The question is, will Mac Jones from Alabama be there with the 14th pick? It'll probably be, my guess is they all go. It's going to be, if Minnesota, for instance, took a quarterback, then they're not going to have a quarterback.
The problem with the Patriots, because I know Patriots fans are going to start freaking out. We have Bill Belichick, and believe me, I'm still giving Bill Belichick grace. I think he has a master plan. But even if they bring in a quarterback, and don't give me the whole, like, well, we don't need the top pick of the draft, Tom Brady. Okay, like, he went the 6th round. Nobody's getting credit for Tom Brady.
Right.
Tom Brady gets credit for Tom Brady.
That's right.
That's it. Nobody gets credit for drafting Tom Brady. That wasn't like, that wasn't some wizardry.
Right.
So that's not going to happen again. Period. But the problem is, even if you bring in a veteran quarterback, what do you do with the rest of your squad? What is the rest of this roster? Now you're going to get the eight players that opted out back, so you're going to get improved there. But this division's not the same. The Bills are not getting any worse. The Dolphins are getting better. The Jets have $1 million draft picks, cap space, a GM, and they're going to get a quarterback. So this is a new world. England Patriots. So this situation with Cam is not surprising to me. So Nets guard Spencer Dinwiddie partially tore his ACL in his right knee and will miss the remainder of the season.
That's
really
brutal.
awful news.
Brutal.
The Nets confirmed the injury and said his surgery is scheduled for next week. There's reportedly no other structural damage in his knee, and he's expected to make a full recovery before next season. But this is a huge loss for the Nets.
Yeah, this is interesting to me. We all know the NFL's got like UFC has a regulated level of violence, right? I'm always surprised how few NFL players miss the season. They miss games. If you're talking about 300-pound guys landing on each other, the NBA it always feels like it has a lot of season-ending injuries to me.
Well,
is it because
if it's those kind of injuries, you're missing the season.
Is it because you go from 0 to 60 so fast? I mean, you have almost no preseason, then you're playing 38 minutes.
Well, the NBA season is also very long.
So you're tired athletes.
I mean, they obviously just started back, so you can't blame this injury.
That's a bad loss for them.
That is, it's significant. He's a big part of the glue on that team. He had a breakout season last year. Yeah, so it's a huge loss. But we'll be back for next season.
All right, Joey with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
James Harrison stopping by today, the all-time sack leader for the Steelers. Jamal Adams of the Seahawks stops by as well. Thoughts on Urban Meyer? Should he go to the NFL? Plus, it's weird. I can't make heads or tails of it, but it is a fascinating NFL stat. That's next, The Herd.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito. I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway. Hey, I'm Gabby. I'm Taylor. I'm Nika. And we're the hosts of a new podcast called Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire. Like how 3 people died because of a poodle. And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body. We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends. That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is the best one. Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship. So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos. Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays. Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
We were talking about Josh Allen earlier today. It's really hard to find examples of somebody that's wildly inaccurate as a quarterback. Josh Allen, college, and his first year as a pro. Like, horrible. And now he completes 70% of his throws. What would worry me if I'm Buffalo is how much of this is Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, who's going to leave. Like, is this as good as it's going to get for Buffalo? Because Josh Allen, you're not paying him any money right now, and he's got probably the best offensive coordinator in football. Like, it feels like for Buffalo, there's a little bit of urgency. I don't feel that with Kansas City because Andy Reid's not going anywhere for a decade. And Andy Reid's the guy designing plays. So I know Mahomes is going to be good for a decade. I don't worry about that. Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur, they're not going anywhere. Sean McDermott's a defensive coach. Much like Belichick. He relies on his coordinator. Like Jimmy Johnson, that offense was Norv Turner's. That's why Norv was really good. So it's really interesting about Buffalo. I love their story, but I could see it unravel a little bit if Brian Daboll takes a Charger job or a Jacksonville job, and you hire an offensive coordinator and he's okay. Because, I mean, there's a lot of things quarterbacks get better at. But you don't take inaccurate guy and make him accurate guy. In fact, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I always had this theory on quarterbacks. You could never complete less than 70% of your throws in college and be a star in the NFL. Matt Stafford, who, by the way, talented but kind of underachieved in his career. You could look it up. Stafford, I think, was at Georgia like 59%. And it was why when he got drafted, I said, big arm, big talent. But I think Matt Ryan, so Stafford at Georgia was 57%. And that, in the NFL, to go from college, you got to be at 60% completion rate. I remember years ago, I don't want to call out the player. I can't say the coach's name or you'll know the player. There was a head coach in college who had a very popular player, and he predicted Tebow wouldn't work. He predicted Jake Locker wasn't going to work. He texted me. He's like, not going to work, not going to work. He's like, Jake Locker's not accurate enough. At college, the windows get smaller, and he said Tebow's got great receivers in college. He'll never get that wide open wide receivers that he has in Florida, and he doesn't throw. But the point being is, you just don't see it much. You don't see a guy that was inaccurate in college, inaccurate as a rookie, like 52%. And then they're completing 70 a couple years later. So it makes me worry about this is the best the Bills are going to be. They've got this classic sort of, it was like Atlanta when they got to a Super Bowl. They had Kyle Shanahan. He took Matt Ryan to a different level. Kyle leaves. Atlanta's never the same. Now, I think Sean McDermott's better than who Atlanta had as a head coach, but it does feel, Peter King came on earlier and talked about this massive, almost unexplainable accuracy leap for Josh Allen.
As far as, the retinkering with Josh Allen, this started, Colin, last year at the Super Bowl when Josh Allen talked to Tony Romo. He didn't retool him totally, but he did give him some advice and obviously continues to retool his delivery. And you're absolutely right. His accuracy, you very rarely see a guy who is inaccurate, as inaccurate as he was at Wyoming in his first year in Buffalo, really improved, but he has.
By the way, we're talking about Urban Meyer. So I don't worry about anything with Urban Meyer other than the fact that he doesn't have any NFL DNA. Jim Harbaugh was a college guy, right? But he played in the NFL and was a wide receiver coach. Tom Coughlin was a 7-year NFL wide receiver coach before he coached Boston College. Matt Rule had coached in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury played in the NFL. Generally, Pete Carroll was in NFL way before USC. Generally speaking, the college guys that work in the NFL, Jimmy Johnson, and he's the exception for a lot of things, but Jimmy told me years ago he would go to NFL seminars every offseason. He wanted to be an NFL coach. It's just he had to start at like Oklahoma State and then go to Miami. But he wanted to be. I've known Urban for years. He would admit to you for the first 20 years of his college career, he didn't even watch Sunday football. He didn't watch it. So it's like John, what was the guy, Michigan basketball coach, got hired by the Cavs, Beeline. Yeah, like he was a great college coach, but never gave you an inkling he liked the NBA. He went there a month in, it was like, oh, this doesn't work at all. He didn't get the players, he didn't get the culture, and Beeline's still a top 5 college basketball coach. So that worries me. Nothing else does. The smarts, the leadership, that's all good. Hour 3 next.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deep D as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Right now, the average white household's wealth is 10 times that of black families. If we try closing this racial wealth gap today, we as a country could generate up $5 trillion more in just 5 years. With Action for Racial Equity, Citi is working to increase access to banking and credit in communities of color. Because striving for racial equity is about creating a brighter financial future for everyone. Learn more at citi.com/racial equity.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Zuri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. And join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeart Radio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, live in Los Angeles, hour 3. The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeart Radio, FS1. You want to see want to hear a stat that means nothing, but I just think it's interesting? Joy Taylor's joining me. So, you have the NFL draft, and players come from everywhere. And high school football is big. It's big in Virginia Beach. It's big in Florida. You know that. You got cousins playing there. It's big in Georgia. It's big in Louisiana. It's big in Alabama. It's big in Texas. Big in California.
Western Pennsylvania.
It's huge in Ohio. Big in Michigan. I'm from Washington State. The Pacific Northwest. All these states producing all this talent. North Dakota's got quarterbacks. Hawaii's got a bunch of good football players. Half the quarterbacks in the NFL, 15, starting this weekend, are from 2 states, Texas and California. Isn't that crazy? So, Josh Allen, California, Sam Darnold, California, Baker Mayfield, Texas, Ryan Tannehill, Texas, Patrick Mahomes, Texas, Derek Carr, California, Alex Smith, California, this week Andy Dalton, Texas. Jalen Hurts, Texas, Aaron Rodgers, California, Matt Stafford, I think it was Southland High School, Texas, Drew Brees, Texas, Tom Brady, California, Jared Goff, California, and Kyler Murray, Texas.
And they're not even playing high school football this year in California, are they?
Not in California, no.
That's devastating.
Oh, I feel so bad. I have a friend who's a high school football coach. It's awful. It's awful for the kids. This pandemic's hard because you got mental health issues. You have to weigh with the economy, with the fear of losing. I mean, it's
just think about how that's affecting their futures, like to college and to the pros, all those.
Well, California restrictions. I've talked to a USC person. There's like we can't lift weights like the SEC can. Like our weight program right now.
Yeah, that's why the Niners are in Arizona.
We'll lift weights. We'll do things. Isn't that amazing? Half the quarterbacks are from 2 states. Some of it is because California's got great winter weather. But you'd think Florida would have a bunch. They have great winter weather too.
Yeah. I mean, Texas is obviously not surprising. Texas is
the only place. You ever fly into Dallas? I'm always amazed by this. You fly into Dallas, and you see about 8 to 10 high school football stadiums, and they all look like colleges.
Yeah, the next level.
They're like 8 to 25,000 people. You're flying in Texas, you're like, man, they got some big high school budgets here. They don't have those budgets everywhere else, but they do in Texas. So Jamal Adams of the Seahawks, boy, his career has been reborn. James Harrison, former Steeler, is going to be joining us. Last night, the Patriots lost to the Buffalo Bills, as we all kind of thought they would. Patriots season already out of the playoffs anyway, but I think this season is a reminder of just how valuable a great quarterback really is. I mean, we know certain things are really important in life. Like, if you've ever had car trouble, if you've ever had unreliable transportation, and we all know it's important to have like a reliable car, but man, you can't even quantify how valuable reliable transportation is, and we all know it's valuable, but it's still underrated. It ruins your life. I had a buddy once that got a cavity. He's like, at least if I broke my arm, I could walk around. He goes, I can't think, I can't sleep. You get a cavity, it ruins your life. It's like last night. The Patriots lost at home. with the best coach in football history, 38-9. What would Buffalo have won by against Doug Marrone, Mike Mularkey, 51-3? That was against Belichick at home in a standalone game. And it wasn't even competitive, the gap in talent, speed, playmakers. Bill Belichick, if that's not a wake-up call that he needs to give more personnel power to somebody else outside the organization, I don't know what is. They haven't drafted a skill player that made a Pro Bowl in a decade. I think it was Gronk was the last one they drafted, and he retired once. The numbers are staggering. 11 first downs, 200 total yards. Buffalo had almost 500. Buffalo had the ball for 40 minutes. New England 20. Cam passed for 34 yards. And I talk about transportation being underrated, even though you know it's valuable. Let's just admit it this morning. Tom Brady was undervalued. No, I said it. Despite all the credit, despite us knowing how great he was, despite calling him the GOAT, he was undervalued. I'm going to ask you a question. Try to figure out the answer. New England had a top 10 scoring offense last year. How? Their offensive line is better this year. New England was 12-4 last year. Their only losses were to 3 division winners and a really red-hot Miami team at the end. How? They don't have any players. I mean, this whole thing was always, remember, we always argued, it's the system. You'd see these newspaper articles. You'd see these articles in magazines, clearly New England coaches planting them. It's about the system. I want to talk for a second about the system. Because the system got a lot of press. I've never met the system. The system is Josh McDaniels, because Belichick lets Josh run the offense. So Josh McDaniels created a system that's very sophisticated. He actually took it to Denver. And so this morning I went and looked up how the system did in Denver. Oh, it was 11-17, fired after 2 years, and in scoring in the NFL, it was 20th and 19th. 20th and 19th. Okay, there are exceptions in life. The system then moved to St. Louis. McDaniels got fired, went to the Rams. Let's see how the system did in scoring. Oh, it was 32nd in the NFL in scoring, dead last. Okay, all right, we'll give him a quarterback. All right, let's give him Cam Newton in the system. He's a former MVP. Oh, they're 28th in scoring. Brady, in 20 years in the system, was never lower and almost always above 7th. They had a top 10 offense last year with that. This garbage. How? Again, the offensive line is better this year than it was last. And you see the duress sometimes. Cam, who's more mobile than Tom, is under. This system is a bunch of nonsense. Tom Brady is the system. He's the system. Because Tom Brady went down, everybody talks about Bruce Arians. Oh, first year with Bruce Arians, everybody struggles. Tom's not. He's going to complete 68% of his throws. His passer rating's going to be over 100. He's going to have like 37 touchdowns and 11 picks. Come on, you tell me. Maybe Bill Belichick? He relies on a system because he's won now 46% of his games without Tom Brady. These numbers are staggering. And Cam Newton, again, former MVP. We never said Cam Newton was Tom Brady. Here are the numbers. Tom Brady to Cam Newton. And we went in with realistic expectations for Cam Newton. He didn't get a preseason. He was kind of an odd fit with Belichick, we thought, and Josh McDaniels. Look at the numbers. Brady, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. Cam, 5 touchdowns, 10 picks. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are certain things in life we know are valuable, and they're still not given enough credit. Tom Brady now qualifies. That and a reliable car. So Dwayne Haskins is no longer a member of the Washington football team. Talented kid at Ohio State. I thought he looked like a number 1 pick. Big, strong, football factory, won big games. Not super athletic, but can move a little bit. But, he looked like a number 1 pick at quarterback. Big, strong, stands in the pocket, can take a hit. You can bang off him, he's strong. I asked Urban Meyer one time, I said, is he ready to start in the NFL? And it was a little bit of a warning flag. He's like, nah, not yet. That tells me it's probably some maturity issues. But every 3 years, years, there is a college quarterback that comes out. Now, Haskins didn't qualify as this, but we do know now that Haskins simply wasn't mature enough. He just wasn't ready to run a $5 billion franchise. But about every 3 or 4 years on this show, a college quarterback comes out. He's always talented. Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel. I was a little tough on Cam, not as much as Baker or Johnny or Jameis. And I question their maturity. And without exception, the media freaks out, and the fan bases freak out, and everybody freaks out. And do you know why I question maturity? 2 words. Dwayne Haskins. Washington just wasted 2 years babysitting a quarterback. I think we should have a new term for quarterbacks. I had Jimmy Johnson on a couple days ago, and he talked about the 2 things that mattered to him. Number 1 was decision-making. Number 2 was accuracy. Let's just be honest about this singular position. I'm not saying it matters in baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball. I'm not saying it matters at any position except quarterback. But this is the one position in American sports, perhaps international sports, where 2 words are really important. Are you uniquely mature? Because I don't think Dwayne Haskins is any less mature than the average 22-year-old. I don't. I think he's the average 22-year-old. But from now on, let's just all acknowledge that this doesn't matter in hockey, baseball, basketball. I don't even think it really matters in football. But when you draft a quarterback, he's going to have to be almost square, like Andrew Luck and Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. Uniquely mature for a 22-year-old. He's going to have to deal with the press. The linebacker won't. He's going to have to deal with the owners and some sponsors. The safety won't. He's going to have to memorize a playbook, not only for himself, but his teammates. The defensive tackle won't. Uniquely mature. I'm not blaming the player all the time. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes parents aren't uniquely mature, and you don't find your way until you're 32 years old. But owners can't wait for that. And the problem being is when you get a Baker, or you get a Johnny Manziel, or you get a Dwayne Haskins, who they're just not perfect maturity-wise for the position, they often go to the worst teams. And the worst teams are the most chaotic, with the craziest owners, with the most impatient GMs. It's a Cleveland, it's a Washington, it's a Detroit. It's a Jacksonville, and that just compounds it. But everybody always freaks out. Let's just have a new rule on this show. For one position in American sports, baseball don't care, basketball, hockey, soccer, football don't care, for quarterback. Are you uniquely mature to get the keys to a $5 billion franchise? And if you're not, you're going to be criticized. And that's okay. Because Johnny's out of the league. Dwayne may be out of the league. Jameis, who's talented and productive, is now a backup. I'm not sure if Cam gets another shot, and he's been great this year. But the Dwayne Haskins story is why we ask the questions. It's why we bang on it. Washington spent the last 2 years in a competitive division just babysitting. Can't have it. Not at that position. Anything else? Guard? Mike linebacker? Safety? Punter? I could deal with it. Can't a quarterback. Only undrafted player to ever be named NFL Defensive Player of the Year, James Harrison. What to make of the Steelers? Now Big Ben is sitting out Week 17. He joins us next. Jamal Adams, who has helped revamp the Seattle Seahawks defense. They're in that Super Bowl window. He joins us in about 30 minutes.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. Trading isn't for everyone, but E-Trade is. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or your retirement, E-Trade has you covered. They can help you check your financial goals off your list, and with a team of professionals when you need it, you can be confident that your money is working hard for you. Get more than just trading with E-Trade. To get started today, visit etrade.com/iHeart for more information. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. You want to invest your money, but there's one problem. You're not sure where to begin. Luckily, there's E-Trade, who offers more than just trading. E-Trade simplifies investing without the financial jargon and has the people to offer guidance and support to make your money work hard for you. For more information, visit etrade.com/iHeart. E-Trade Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC.
We were just talking about age before the interview with James Harrison, a Super Bowl champ, only undrafted NFL player ever to get NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 15 years, 2 Super Bowls, 5 Pro Bowls, still lives in Pittsburgh. He likes all the seasons. And so he is joining us now live from not far from where Joy Taylor grew up. And so in Pittsburgh, they love their Steelers, and it is interesting. James, Ben's not going to play this week. I don't know what happened last week, but something happened at halftime. Maybe it was about a half dozen Red Bulls, but he played his best half of football in like a month and a half. But when I watch Ben, listen, I can see Father Time. It's not difficult to see. It's not the same. Is it time to draft another quarterback, go get a Darnold Wentz? Like, where do you sit on Ben today in the future of the Steelers?
Well, you can't play the game forever. And to be honest with you, I think they need to find that heir apparent. You know, the player that they're looking at being the guy that's going to come in and replace being the person that'll be sitting under Ben, watching Ben, learning from Ben. And I don't think they have that person right now.
James, obviously he's iconic. Moving off a Brady or a Peyton Manning or a Big Ben, sometimes it's hard to go. Dan Marino was yelling at people when they were trying to push him out of Miami. You know Ben. Will he be difficult? Will he push back? Will he be a guy that goes, all right, great career, thanks, I'm going to leave? Like, how do you think it will go?
I think honesty will go a long way as far as them being upfront and open with exactly what it is that they want to do. Now, if you tell a person one thing, and you start doing something else, you're going to have a hard time dealing with that person because you didn't do exactly what it is that you said you were going to do. But I believe if they were to be upfront and honest with Ben and be like, hey, we're, you can't play the game forever. We need to find that heir apparent. And when we get that guy here, we're going to need him to be on your heels and you're showing him the ropes and helping him out. And, we're going to go from there. And hopefully, we draft the right guy and you can help us do that. I think he would be open to doing that. I don't see Ben having an issue with that. But, if they draft a guy just saying, we need a better quality backup and they're actually looking to put him in that spot, and that's not what they're telling him, then I think you're going to have a problem.
1-3 after starting 11-0. Does Pittsburgh look like a team to you that could win multiple playoff games? Because that's the standard there.
Right now, the way they're playing, I can't say that they look like a team that could win multiple playoff games. What they need to do is they need to correct the rush game. They need to start catching the balls that are thrown to them. The thing that I'm seeing with the defense, I think you're starting to see, the loss of guys like Bush, Dupree, Spillane. The defense isn't playing up to the standard against the opponents that they have, they got, offenses like Washington and Cincinnati that, they're number one. Well, actually, they're number 2 defense now. They should be, crushing these guys. They shouldn't have an opportunity to score as many points as they're scoring. And they're scoring. Now, added with that, the offense isn't rushing the ball well. So now you got the defense on the field longer. You're talking, anywhere from 31, almost 36 minutes, a game in the last, month of December. So, one thing compounds to another. And, it really starts with, the rush game, not being able to have an effective rush game.
So you spent a year in New England, and you have great respect and admiration for Belichick and the system. They got beat by 30 last night. The record's bad. When Brady left, did you think the drop-off would be this obvious? Is Tom better than we thought? I mean, you were there at the end in New England. It wasn't the most dynamic offense when you were there. Are you shocked at how it's gone from playoff team 12-4 to this?
I didn't think they would get that bad. I honestly can't say I thought they would make the playoffs because, what Tom was working with, you give that to another a little better. And what he has now in, Tampa, he has weapons in Tampa. And the opportunity to go out there and, use his arm exactly how he was using it in New England with a better cast.
Yeah. I watched them. Does Cam Newton have a future in your opinion? What do you make of it?
I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but I think it's over.
Yeah.
I think he might have got his last hurrah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm watching. We have Jamal Adams coming out with the Seahawks. They had no pass rush for the first 7 weeks of the year. They go get Carlos Dunlap, Jamal Adams get healthy. Now they have a top 3 pass rush. It's funny. You were with a team that almost always had a good pass rush. Is pass rush scheme? Is it players? Is it coaching? Like, I watched Seattle, no pass rush, elite pass rush. Is it as simple as, well, they got Carlos Dunlap? Like, how do you explain it?
Well, it can be players and scheme. So if you got a player that is a dominant player and is going out there and it's requiring people's attention. Now you can try and scheme to where you got, Jamal Adams, where he's an extra rush. You're not counting on the safety having to be counted, in 30-40% of the the passing downs as being a rusher. So when he's coming in there out of nowhere, he has a few, probably 4 or 5 of the sacks. It's like no touches. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 where he actually had to, beat a guy to get to it. So it can be scheme, it can be player. It's a combination of both. I think that's what they have there now. They got Dunlap, who is actually a good pass rusher, can pass rush, and they have him who can fill in at different spots, depending on what's going on, and still be able to run the defenses that they need to run.
So Cleveland is favored over Pittsburgh in Week 17. You look at Baker, you look at the Browns, you look at their history. Do you trust Cleveland to beat Pittsburgh with a backup? Do you trust them to win a playoff game? How do you feel about the Cleveland Browns this morning going forward?
I don't believe in Cleveland beating the Steelers anyway, so I don't care if it was a backup or not. That's not something I can prescribe to, and I don't even know if he's going to have his receivers. I think last week he lost almost all of his guys to COVID protocol, right?
Yep. 4.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I think it's a 14-day plus a 3-day reentry or something like that, right? So he's not going to have those same weapons at his disposal, and you lost to the Jets. So I don't see them coming in. Well, I don't see them beating Pittsburgh, even though they are at home.
By the way, how many times did you lose to Cleveland?
I might have lost to Cleveland once or twice.
Most blowout wins, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. For a while, I don't think Big Ben lost to Cleveland or Cincinnati in a decade. It was like twice. Yeah, so. All right, James Harrison, Super Bowl champ, couple of times. Good seeing you, bud.
Good to see you, too.
Jamal Adams, Seahawks around the corner. Here's George Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, it's going to be a great weekend of football, starting with college football playoffs on Friday. Dabo Swinney made some waves when he ranked Ohio State 11th in his final coaches poll this season, and he's standing by that ranking ahead of their playoff matchup with the Buckeyes.
No disrespect. I mean, people can perceive and take things however they want. It's not that they're not good enough. I just don't think it's right that 3 teams have to play 13 games to be the champion, and one team has to play 8. People have a problem with that. I don't really care. It's my bowl, and it doesn't matter who the person was. It's 0 to do with Ohio State.
Listen, it's a very fair argument. This is what the SEC and the ACC are saying. Is because you were cautious. We went for it with COVID. We rolled the dice, and we're being punished because we played 13 games. You play in a weaker conference as an Alabama, and you got to play 8. So, I understand the people that went full steam ahead against COVID and just went for it, being not bitter, but a little bit like, okay, you're playing 5 less games, 5 fewer games. And by the way, Ohio State also struggled in their last 2 games. Indiana, they struggled. Northwestern, they struggled.
No, he has a point. Those teams feel like they have a right to go and lose dramatically to Clemson as well. that's what would happen anyway.
So give me your
and that's the
score.
reason why Ohio State is there.
Okay, give me your Ohio State Clemson score.
I don't know. I think Clemson wins by at least 10. I don't think it's very close.
You don't think it's very close?
I don't think either of these games are going to be very close, no.
How about if I do this? I have to give you the money I owe you. And by the way, I am embarrassed because yesterday I was going to go to the bank and it was pouring.
Yeah, it was
tomorrow.
disgusting to get out of the car yesterday.
Okay, do you want the $100 tomorrow, or I'll bet it on Clemson and you get the winnings? So then you could get like $200. I'm cagey.
Do I want you to put my money on Clemson?
You think I would just give you the money?
That has Clemson at -7.5. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you can put it on Clemson.
I'd be nicer if I just gave you the money since you won it.
Well, that's fine. It's fine. That's actually not a bad idea. I was going to put money on Clemson anyway, so you can just do that. It's free money. No, listen. The reason why the statement is so impactful is because he's not wrong, right? But life's not fair, okay? And that's college sports is an opinion sport.
Yeah, you don't have standings. Like, I mean, basically, you vote on who you think, with completely unequal schedules, who should play who at the end.
I do think that these conversations are why there is some value to expanding the college football playoffs.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I think that it's just going to lead to more blowouts.
And more ugliness.
However, there's something to March Madness. There's 1 million teams in, but it gives everybody a little bit of hope. We know one team is going to go on some miracle run. They're not going to win the championship, but they're going to go on an exciting run. It's good for recruiting. It expands it. Everybody kind of feels like they have a chance. Even if we know they don't have a chance, the feeling that you have a chance, hope sells. Negativity sells. Hope also sells.
Yeah.
So expanding the college football playoff.
So I think to your point, hope sells and college football feels largely hopeless.
It does.
For everybody except Clemson and the SEC. A little bit hopeless. Yeah, it's fair.
I mean, we talk about it all the time. That's why we have to be very calculated about how we talk about college football, because unless there are big, massive stories, it's very regional sport.
Yeah.
That's how it's become.
That's
so expanding it would open it up to the West Coast, would open it up to the Midwest.
Yeah, I've told my friends in the South this. I used to talk 50% more college football, but once a sport becomes regional or local, like regular season baseball games, as a syndicated host, I can no longer talk it. That's why NFL and NBA and the occasional huge college football matchup, or Tiger at the Masters, or a huge fight with Conor McGregor, those are national stories.
Yeah.
But college football has become so insular and regional, and if it's not like literally Ohio State, Clemson, it's hard to talk about.
Think about it. If this weekend had 4 games instead of the 2.
And then we'd have Oregon against Oklahoma.
Texas A&M would be in.
Okay, now,
you know what I'm saying? So even though we know that they're eventually going to get demolished by the higher end teams, it opens up for recruiting. Maybe it does spread some of the recruits around, the talent around, because they're seeing these other schools in the playoff.
Yeah.
So the Cowboys are on a 3-game win streak and still alive in the playoff race. Oh, that NFC East. It's always something with the NFC East.
Backup quarterbacks, decent rosters, all missing. Cowboys are missing a couple of linemen. Giants are missing.
Every
running
team in this division has played multiple games with a backup quarterback this year.
And that explains why it's a mess.
So Zeke says he doesn't want to hear from any fans that lost faith in their team earlier this season.
If you gave up 5-6 weeks ago, we shouldn't even be. We don't even want you on our side. I mean, we're competitors. This whole team is. We're a team of competitors, and I mean, we weren't out of it. I think we're catching fire at the right time.
Zeke, in all fairness, you weren't out of it because this division was a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah, you should be 4th place everywhere else.
Okay, if Alex Smith hadn't gotten hurt, this would be a completely different situation.
Do you know the Giants can win the division? The Giants are 5 and 10 to win the division.
Every one of these teams could win the division.
No,
except for the Eagles. The Eagles are the only ones that are eliminated.
Yeah,
if Washington beats the Eagles, they win the division. If Washington loses, then the winner of Cowboys-Giants will win the division. So Washington, Dallas, and New York are all in play this weekend. Washington controls their destiny. If they win, they're in. But it's Taylor Heineke at quarterback.
Well, they're not going to win. So Washington's not going to win. So the winner of the Cowboys-Giants gets to the playoffs. That's the story. And right now the Cowboys are playing better and have a better offense. By the way, all you people that bagged on me for, I always said, Dak's better than Andy Dalton, but as a distributor of the ball, Andy's pretty darn good. You all whacked me for that.
Well, Andy Dalton was a starter for a long time. Maybe it just took a little bit of time to get rolling. And I think that the Cowboys, the Cowboys are one of those teams that we probably should have been more patient with. They are the Dallas Cowboys, who are not going to be. But it's McCarthy's first year in a COVID-shortened season. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
If Dak hadn't gotten hurt, they would have run away with this division. And maybe that's not saying much because the division isn't good, and they're not really that great.
Yeah.
But they'd be in a much better situation.
Yeah.
So this is just a wash year for them anyway. Finally, Jimmy Garoppolo was good enough to get the 49ers to the Super Bowl last season, but there's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen next year. Kyle Shanahan says he does think that Jimmy G will be in San Francisco next year, but he stopped short of fully committing to him.
Well, yes, I do believe Jimmy's going to be our quarterback next year. Guys, you can't say anything with certainty. I mean, you don't sit here and make promises on anything. Jimmy, you can win with. He's proven that. And he's proven he's a starting quarterback in this league. Look at Jimmy. Look what he's done. Look at where he's at with us financially. And we better have a very good answer if you're going to find something better than that, because Jimmy's shown in 1 year that he's the guy who can take us to the Super Bowl.
So we think Kyle Shanahan's a great young coach. His record's like 5-28.
7-26 without Jimmy G.
There you go. So Jimmy G's pretty valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to Dak Prescott, maybe they're not the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, but they've certainly shown their value this year.
They can win a bunch of games.
They win a lot of games, and they can, if they're in the right situation. Some people need really great situations around them to be great. Other people are so great they can elevate others, and then they still have limitations because there's too much to bring up. It's fine. You can win both ways. We've seen it in the NFL. Now, everybody's not a dynasty, right? Maybe you're not going to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls, but you can win a Super Bowl with a middle-of-the-road quarterback.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Alex Smith was starting this weekend for sure for Washington, I would pick them to win and win the division. He is not, so they're not going to win the division, and Dallas probably is. I mean, literally, the division hinges on Alex Smith's multi-operated knee.
Yes.
I mean, Alex Smith is considered solid. You win the division with him, you don't without it. It's that simple for I don't think Washington can go to Philadelphia on Sunday night and win with their third quarterback. I don't think they can do it.
The question with Jimmy G, obviously, is his health. Like, he's got to stay healthy.
He's injury prone.
Yes. He's in the third year of his 5-year deal.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any guaranteed money remaining on the deal, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2023. I think he's going to be there next year, but he has missed 23 games due to injury, so that's just a fact
I would
in
draft
his career.
I would draft a quarterback in San Francisco, even if I brought him back.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Joy of the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I said I wanted to get Jamal Adams on the show sometime. I said a while back, and today he's going to be on. Seahawks safety. Help revamp that defense. In a Super Bowl kind of bubble window, it feels like. Jamal Adams next. The Herd.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
And you never know who's going to stop by. Our record store is frequented by musicians, producers, writers, actors, and especially lots of unfamous nobodies like you and I, Tara.
That's right.
As long as they are excited to talk about music, they'll probably make an appearance in our record store sooner or later, and we can't wait to talk to them.
I want to find out what their top 5 debut albums are.
I want to find out who their top 5 Beatles are.
Wait.
Exactly. So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
First game I went to as a kid, professional sporting event, was a Seahawks game against John Elway, and I think the Seahawks beat him. And Jamal Adams is now joining us. He's part of the Seahawks. Fourth
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's interesting. Joey and I talk about this all the time. I can't imagine having a job where I could work at a place I love and get traded to a place I didn't love. The opposite happened to you. You were in a losing culture, and one day you get a phone call and they say, hey, we're going to ship you to Seattle where they win Super Bowls and they're really good. I mean, when you first arrived in Seattle, like, did it feel different? Just on the feeling that it was a winning team and a winning culture and the whole building? Did it feel different to you?
Yeah, it did, man. From the day I walked in, the first thing Pete and Mr. Snyder told me was to be myself. Come here and be myself, and come win ball games. That's what it's about. This organization is one of one. It's very unique, and I'm just fortunate enough to be here, man.
Well, Pete's very different. Even though he's a 68, 69-year-old guy, he's got a lot of enthusiasm. So tell me, how is Pete different than other coaches you've had?
He cares about his players. Off the field, you know what I mean? And I think that's what makes it special. You go to war for a coach like that. You just want to play for him. You want to give it. Obviously he's not a me guy. He doesn't want all the praise, but you want to play for a coach like that. You'll go extra hard for him. He's full of energy, very unique. He's himself at all times. He doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. And I got his back forever, man. That's my guy.
So you're different. You have most sacks by a defensive back in a single season. At times, I don't like. You're a safety, but not really. You remind me a little bit of Honey Badger. In that you're just a real instinctive football player that blows stuff up and makes stuff happen. In the Seattle defense, does Pete consider you a safety, a linebacker? Like, do you have a specific label, or how do you feel you should be or are treated there in terms of position?
Well, I classify myself as a playmaker. You know what I mean? I can play anything you need me to do. Any position really, and I don't really classify myself just as a safety. I classify myself as a defensive weapon. You know what I mean? And so I'm just going to continue to play my ball, continue to do what they ask me to do, continue to learn, and that's all I can do.
So we thought on this show, I've been a fan of Carlos Dunlap forever. Smart guy. He got into a He got into a situation like you. He was in an organization that wasn't winning games. And then Seattle goes and gets him, and now both of you go from losers to winners. Have you and Carlos talked about the difference? Because he had a similar situation to you, Jamal.
Absolutely. We talk about it all the time, and we're so fortunate. We always, tell the guys over here that, hey, man, if you're a rookie or you've been here for your whole career, you're really spoiled, right? And they spoil the guys in the right way over here. They treat us how we're supposed to be treated, and but at the same time, they let us have fun. They let us be ourselves, and just be unique in our own ways, and then come together as a team, and chase championships. That's what it's about.
So far for the Seahawks, because I thought the Rams you're in a division now where it's crazy. You got Russell Wilson running around and Kyler Murray running around, a lot of offensive coaches, and is there a team in the playoffs, an offense that what does worry you about Seattle going forward? Are there things that you think you have to get better at right now? Because we're running out of regular season here. What does Seattle have to get better at?
We're hitting our stride at the right time. I like us over anybody. That's just the confidence that I have. That's the confidence that we have as a group, and we know what type of guys we go to war with every day. We know what type of staff that's preparing us each and every day and every week. So we're going to be ready. Whoever the matchup is, when the time comes, we'll be ready for it. But at the end of the day, we just want to, continue to stay focused on the mission. We have one more game left, and that's versus the 49ers. So the next game is important because it's the next one.
Russell Wilson's obviously a tremendous transformational player. Now you practice against Russell Wilson every day. Is it better than you thought? I mean, give me a thought about practicing with Russell, what it's like every day.
Yeah. I mean, the ultimate pro. What you see is what you get. He's all about his business. He comes to work each and every day. You know what type of guy you're going to get. You know what type of teammate, what type of leader you're going to get on and off the field. And he's the ultimate competitor. He wants to win, and I respect him so much. That's my guy. I always call him three. And you know, we're starting to build a great relationship. And you know, like I said, man, I just have so much respect for what he does on and off the field. He's always at work early, and he's always leaving late, or whatever the case may be. He's always putting in work, man. True pro.
So DK Metcalf it doesn't even look like the rest of us, right? Like he's just a different body type. Do you, when you face him every day at practice, I mean, do you as a guy that's been around this league a while now, almost a half decade, do you talk to him? Do you tutor him? Is he accepting of it? What do you do with some of the young Seattle offensive players at practice?
Yeah, I just tell them to keep going, you know what I mean, and keep elevating. You know, I'm still young in the game myself, right? I'm only 25, you know, year 4. So, you know, I'm still young and I'm still, you know, going to continue to learn. But I always tell those guys to, you know, never stop learning and continue to learn, be willing to learn, and, you know, always stay coachable because, you know, there's so much knowledge out there, and you don't know it all yet. You know, no one knows it all yet. And, you know, you just want to keep elevating your game. So that's all that matters.
Now, I'm from Seattle, so I can handle the rain. I grew up, my high school football games were all in the rain, Jamal. You know, you were down in Louisiana. It can be warm. And how are you acclimating to Seattle's slightly gloomy winter weather?
Yeah, it's different, man. I will say it's different, but I enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's very relaxing when you know you want to relax, and you know I don't go out. Obviously, you know with COVID, you know I'm in the house. I don't. This is probably a rare, you know, chance that I take, and I go, you know, get my pedicure, you know, every Tuesday. But other than that, man, I'm in the building. I'm leaving the building. I'm going home. You know what I mean? So I'm just focused on the mission, and you know, God is good, man.
Manny Petty today. So you got your pedicure just moments ago?
Absolutely, man. Got to keep it right.
Well, Joy's shaking her head. She's like, yeah, totally.
You have to take care of your feet.
Got to take. Listen, bad feet, ugly feet are a problem for everybody.
Yeah. Pretty boy off the field. Pretty boy off the field.
Jamal, congratulations. Good to have you in a winning culture and the defense. I just saw a stat here today. Number 2 pass defense since week 12 and 31 sacks, most in the NFL since Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams returned in week 9. So you are absolutely humming, and you're healthy, and your running backs are healthy. Are you healthy, by the way? Do you feel good right now?
I'm good enough, and that's all that matters. I'm good enough.
That's the NFL. Good talking to you, bud.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you, man.
You bet. Jamal Adams. He's a Pete Carroll player. So he's sometimes you're like, oh, he's a little overly aggressive. When you go back to Pete Carroll at Seattle, they had a few penalties. Like Pete would let guys play. Pete's always been, and he actually, when Adam Gase struggles with stars, Pete very much embraces stars. That's why one succeeds and one doesn't.
I don't get that in professional sports, struggling with stars. Okay, it's not for you.
That's
right.
Where
the stars are. You can't deal with stars. Anytime a coach is like, I don't deal with stars, like, okay.
You're a college coach.
You're a college coach, and you're probably not going to be great. This is where the stars are.
But Pete, like he said, like Pete lets you play. Like Pete's practices are big energy. You know, it's Pete is so unique in the NFL. And I've had GMs say, I don't understand Seattle's draft. I don't understand. They do things just everything a little different than everybody else. They draft a little differently. They're the only team in the NFL that can struggle with their first-round picks, but they're great with their fourth-round picks. They've had some misses in their first-round picks. And, like, they'll make picks when they did Rashad Penny a couple years ago. I had 2 GMs who were like, I don't even understand that pick. That's not even what they need.
I think what they've done in the middle of the season has been impressive.
Unbelievable.
Going from having no pass rush.
They're like Tennessee. They had no pass rush.
Yeah, but Tennessee didn't do anything about it.
Nothing. Tennessee's a team that they had a cornerback issue. They didn't sign Logan, who I love on the show. Like, sign him. And they didn't have a pass rush, and they didn't do anything. Seattle had both those issues. They didn't love their corners, and they didn't have a pass rush. But by Dunlap and Jamal Adams coming in, it made their corners better. So Seattle's issue now is actually switched. It's more of an interior offensive line issue. They don't get a ton of push. It's better than Pittsburgh, but they're not getting a push. And it does feel like sometimes, if Chris Carson's not healthy, you feel like you don't have much of a running game. So Seattle needs to draft a corner and an interior offensive lineman, and that kind of solves
they're two little dilemmas, and at this point, they're little dilemmas. That's about all they are. The supplement I take every day is M-Drive, powerful ingredients backed by science, helps you get energized, stronger, leaner. Go to mdriveformen.com today. Refine your prime with M-Drive. I've talked a lot about how I live in Los Angeles now. And all the LA teams are good. All of them. It just doesn't make any sense. We have the best players. We have the best teams. Rams now are a little sideways, but they'll make the playoffs because they'll lose to Arizona, but the Bears will lose to Green Bay. Yeah. But when I was a kid growing up in Seattle, our team stunk. So it was like, I got a championship with the Sonics in the 70s. The Huskies were good in the early 90s. The Seahawks were entertaining, but like now in Seattle, it's like the Seahawks are just good every year. And if Russell Wilson stays for 10 more years, they're going to probably be in the playoffs 8 of those 10. Seattle deserves it, I'll tell you that. See you tomorrow, The Herd.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected?
I have to make a deal with the devil.
Or which challenges were too dangerous for TV?
Really blood though?
Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by none other than me, your girl Tori, and me, Anissa. We're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge from two people who lived through all the chaos, insanity, and the drama. Plus, we're going to be interviewing producers, other challengers, and maybe even the occasional superfan. Which means you're going to hear things on this podcast that you will not hear anywhere else. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you love all things geeky? Well, so do we. Join us, Jonathan Strickland and Ariel Caston, on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast as we take on the geeky news of today and turn it into so bad it's good, quick bites of fanfic. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.